star in the world of Kuchipudi. Stepping into the spotlight at the age of 3, since then, Yamini has developed a unique creative process that merges modern innovations and traditional compositions through her years of dedication, learning, and expert. May I also welcome Radhika Bajaj to chair this session. Let's put our hands together to Yamini Reddy, a classical dancer and 3-time national awardee.
Thank you very much for that, Bhargavi, and quite a wonderful introduction has already been given, Yamini. Welcome once again. Thank you for joining us on the Southern Rising. Here. So, Yamini, of course, we've heard about the legendary family that you come from. Your parents introduced you to the world of Kuchipudi at a very, very young age. Was there a time when you realized that I want to do this as my own person? I take the decision to dedicate my life to Kuchipudi.
I was always crazy about dance since I was little. I used to, in fact, really eat my parents' head day in and day out. It's a very funny story. But anyone who would come home, I would make them sit. I was very little, 3, 4 years old, and I would say, here, watch my performance. So I was always very passionate about dance, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do from very early on. But my parents, they know that how much of a struggle it is to be an artist and how long the struggle can be. So they were keen that I have more comfortable life. And so they wanted me to become, maybe take up some other profession. So my mom especially. And she kept insisting for a long time that I don't dance and I do something else. And so I studied. I finished my master's for her. And then I finally gave her the degree and I said, Mama, now can I dance? Because this is when I want to now dedicate my life to dancing. So at that point she was, okay, I can see that you are very serious about this and you go ahead, make this your profession.
But of course you were training all the time when you were growing up.
All the time before that I was training, performing constantly since the age of 3. So I was doing all of that. But the conscious decision to do nothing else but this, that was the turning point in my life.
Yamini, we say that there are legacy businesses and we say that the young generation is now doing something different with the business, right? Or they are diversifying the business. This is an art form that is coming through generations and through ancient texts. As a young person, the youngest person in your family, were you able to innovate with this art form at all?
Yes, of course. I think as artists, we always bring something of our own to the table. If you see Kuchipudi right now in its newest form, is a link between the heritage and history of our Telugu people and the present day that we have, the modern day that we have. So Kuchipudi is kind of, in its newest form, a modern link to that. And so it becomes any artist, like even my responsibility or my parents, to carry on that rich heritage of centuries that has been passed down to us, to keep it intact and pass it on. But at the same time, as an artist, we always bring our own flavor to the art form. For instance, when my parents moved to Delhi, by virtue of being, having stayed there, Kuchipudi is typically performed to Telugu and Sanskrit verses, right? So, but because they've stayed there for so long, they saw the beauty in the Hindi language and in Hindustani music and Sufi music. So they did a lot of work with respect to that. And because I was born in Delhi and raised there, and I'm, of course, of a younger generation, right? So I see things differently. So when I see things differently, I try to bring that freshness to my Kuchipudi when I perform. So I try to, like, maybe contemporize the presentation, but I never try to mess with the grammar of the art form, because I feel that that should be kept intact. So if you see, if English is not written the same way and spoken with the correct grammar, it will not be English. But you can write many stories of your own using that grammar. So that's what I try to do with Kuchipudi as well.
Well, that's lovely, because you are kind of passing on the traditional art form with the contemporary sensibility to the next generations as well, because I know that you teach the dance form as well. How do you teach the language of Kuchipudi to your students?
So Kuchipudi, or any classical form for that matter. It's a very arduous training. It takes many, many years to learn it and then master it, of course. So I try to make this art form relevant to the younger generation so that they enjoy it when they're performing. I have a little surprise for you.
Okay.
So I have requested some of my disciples. It's very impromptu.
Oh, how
I've
lovely.
asked them to join me. I just want to give you a little demo about how our training begins in Kuchipudi. So I would like
It'll
to...
be wonderful. Let's welcome the students.
So as you see, the audience, when we go to school, the first thing that we learn are alphabets, right? So in Kuchipudi also we have alphabets. And we learn to first begin with positions of the feet, leg, hands. So for instance, they're standing in Samapadam. Then we have a position on the heel, Anchitam. We have a position on the toe, Kunchitam. On toe, and then Swastikam, cross. So these positions we then combine to form adavus, which we call as words in our style. So for instance, now when they'll combine those positions, they'll show you a few adavus. Takka dhinna tom, takka dhinna tom, takka dhinna tei hi. Hi da, tam, tat tei, tei hitta tam, tei hi da, tam, tat tei, tei hitta tam, tam tei hi da at ta am tat tei, tei hitta ta am tei hi da at ta am tat tei, tei hitta ta am ta. So this is how we combine.
Beautifully done. Thank you. Thank you.
So after words, we have sentences.
Okay.
So when we put it together in a sentence, for instance, ditta, dimita, kitataka, talangutaka, dimitaka, tadinginatum, ta. Now that's a sentence in dance. So visually when you see it in dance, the same thing. Takadinatum, takadinatum, takadina ditta, dimita, kitataka, talangutaka, dimitaka, tadinginatum, ta. So can you guess what came at the end of the sentence? The full stop. So in dance, the ta was the full stop. So it's very grammatical and it's very nuanced, the
And
training.
it's beautiful, and I can tell why it takes so much dedication and time to learn this language of Kuchipudi.
Yes, in fact, what you just saw is pure dance on Nritta. And I wanted to show you a small glimpse. I have requested Ravi Kant here to join us, just to give you a glimpse of, I think all of you might be knowing that Kuchipudi uses Telugu and Sanskrit verses.
Yes.
And the system of music that we use for our dance is the Carnatic system of music, right? It's the southern Carnatic style of music. So here the pure dance, when it is done, this is Ravi Kant, and he will be, the dancers will dance, and you can see how melodious notes, rhythmic patterns, and beautiful gestures are used to create a magical world of dance. Taka dinna tom, taka dinna tom, taka dinna, takita, 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 taka dimi, taka digi janu, tadi kita tom, taka digi janu, tadi kita tom, taka digi janu, tadi kita tom, ditta, dimita, kita taka talangu, taka dimi, taka tadingina tom, ditta, dimita, kita taka talangu, taka dimi, taka tadingina tom, ditta, dimita, dimita, kita. Ditta, dhimita, dhimita, kitata. Ditta, dhimita, dhimita, kitataka. Tadiginatum, tadiginatum, tadiginatum. Tajum, tajum, tajum.
Tari, taku, tarita. Dana, tajanu, tajum, tarau, taka, tarita, tadigina, tata. Hari तक नम तरी ता ता जयम तक नम तरी तकू तरी ता धन तजनु तजुं तरु तक तरी तदिगिन तत हरिजं तक नम तरी ता ता हरिजयं तक नम तरी तकू तरी ता दन तजनु तजुं तरु तक तरी तदिगिन
tajam 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 tat tajje.
Beautifully done.
So Radhika, what you just saw is pure dance. There is no storytelling. There is no meaning. It's
But
just
to us watching, and
yeah.
I couldn't even see their faces properly because I'm sitting behind, but just the expressions, right? The beautiful movement of the eyes. So much of it is about storytelling,
Yes,
right?
yes.
How are you able to pass that down? Because the expressions remain consistent, right? Through the ages.
So what you just saw was pure dance, nritta, where there is no storytelling. But dance has its own language as gestures, which we call as hastas or mudras. For example, when we want to show a deer, we'll use the simha mukha hasta. Okay? So when we want to show a bell or a flower, we also use this kangulascha or an ala padma. And for a bee, we use brahmari hasta.
You make
So-
it sound so easy.
So these gestures, we develop this language of gestures, and then we use these to tell stories. So once again, I'm going to call them. It's a very interesting piece where I'm going to show you how we use these gestures. So I'm going to narrate in English, and they're going to do the hastas in dance.
In
Yeah.
dance.
So this is a story of Gajendra, an elephant, who was roaming in a forest and he's caught by the crocodile. So it's a story from the Bhagavatam. There was a forest. There were different kinds of flowers in the forest. One day, an elephant was roaming in the forest. Dhim tadhi tajanu tadhanata natajanu tam tarita janu takadinatum takadinata. There was a lake in the forest. The elephant stepped into the lake to drink water, but the frogs in the lake started croaking. Nagana, naga, naga, nagana, naga, naga, nagana, naga, naga, nagam. There was a crocodile in the lake. Digi, 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 digi. There was a fight between the elephant and the crocodile. Digi, 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 ta. Digi, 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 tay. Digi, 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 ta. Digi, 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 tay. The elephant was caught. He prayed to Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu threw his chakra and killed the crocodile. The elephant was now free to roam the forest. So as you can see, this was a short story. And the use of hastas and gestures to communicate, this has been coming from the time of the Rig Veda. And then it has been slowly developed and adapted towards dance. And dance then became more complex.
Well, it was a beautiful presentation. When there are young students who show interest in classical dance, and children today have the choice of picking various Western dance forms as well, contemporary jazz, how do you convince them to take up Indian classical art form like Kuchipudi, especially because perhaps it takes much more time to master it?
Actually, contrary to belief, there are a lot of students who come to me to learn dance. There's a lot of interest in classical dance, especially for learning. I have a lot of students who come and I teach them. But what is important is, as a teacher, to make it relevant for the current generation. So it's very important to explain the context to them, to explain the history of this beautiful art form that has been passed down for us, and how this is even relevant today, and why it is not something ancient and forgotten. Because, you know, we dance a lot about our gods, right? The gods are a very central theme of our dance. But why do we dance a lot about gods? Now, the reason being is that if I tell you a lot of moral, ethical things, if you just tell people very plainly and I say, you have to be good, you should not be doing this, it's a very bad habit. And if I keep telling you something like this, you'll be bored, you won't listen after some time. So they devised a way of making up these beautiful stories, and then they wanted to pass this message on to the common man. And so that's how a lot of stories about gods or the goddesses, ultimately it's about the victory of good over evil, whether it's of oneself, within oneself, or it's outside oneself.
So a lot of Kuchipudi is also based around the theme of Shringara Rasa, right? Again, the fact that there is emotions of separation, emotions of union. As a dancer, as a performer, how have you trained yourself to master those emotions and expressions on stage? And do you sort of, when you're practicing, do you go in a zone where you have to center yourself and think about those expressions?
Yes, of course. I think as a dance is actually meditation and movement. So when you're moving, you're going to a very meditative state. So it's very important to be in that zone. And the Navarasas are a very central theme of our dance, the 9 emotions. Of this, the Shringara Rasa is believed to be the king of rasas. The reason is because all the other rasas are believed to have emerged from or merged into the Shringara Rasa. Then again, the Shringara Rasa is also treated in 2 ways. One is separation, about mad love, when we are separated from our lover and there is no union there. And then we have the Shringara where there is union, Sambhoga, with our lover. So here I would like to show you a small presentation of the rasa of Krishna and Radha. I think Krishna and Radha are the ultimate representation of union, of love and union. So they will just demonstrate to you that. And Ravi will sing this, of course, very beautifully. Marakata Manimaya.
Marakatamanimaya chela Marakatamanimaya chela Krishna Marakatamanimaya chela Krishna Maragatamani chela Krishna Maragatamani chela Krishna Maragatamani chela Krishna Marakatamani Maya Chela Vanajanayana Radha Mukha Madhukara Rasika Rasika Vara Rasa Vilasa Vanajanayana Radha Mukha Madhukara Rasika Rasika Vara Rasa Vilasa Vanajanayana Radha Mukha Madhukara Rasika Rasika Vara Rasa Vilasa Vanajanayana Radha Mukha Madhukara रसिक रसिक वर रास विलास वन जनयन राधा मुख मधुकर रसिक रसिक वर रास विलास वन जनयन राधा मुख मधुकर रसिक रसिक वर रास विलास
So I think that is the epitome of Shringara Rasa.
And that's, I think, a beautiful way to bring this session to a close as well. Thank you
Yes.
so much,
No, it was
Yamini.
my
And thank you
pleasure.
to all the wonderful students who've also given us an education today. Thank you very much.
I think
And-
it's been my pleasure to bring this Telugu, the art form of the Telugu people. Kuchipudi is the art form of the Telugu people. And culture, see, every culture is unique in its own way, and every culture has stories to tell. And I'm very happy that I was able to present my art form before all of you. Thank you so much for
It's
having
been our
me.
privilege. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for Yamini Reddy, please.
Thank you, Yamini. Thank you so much. And may I request Rupali Fernandez, Chief Revenue Officer, ABP Network, to kindly come up and felicitate Yamini Reddy.